We are Motörhead, and we play rock and roll.
Edwin Canestracci here, and guess what? We finally took long enough, finally got 500 subscribers. Actually, as of now, I got 503 subscribers. So now I can say over 500 subscribers. I know it's not a lot, but it's a start. Empires have started with less numbers than that, my friend. And now I'm shooting for 1,000. So I guess I gotta keep making these videos more awesome and awesome and awesome. I think I'm up to that task. You know what I said I would do? And I said this to the RMCP Army. I said if I got 500 subscribers, I'm gonna take things back to the roots. That's right. My very first video I ever did back in 2016 to honor the man himself, Lemmy Kilmister. To honor him, I made a video where I reviewed the entire Motörhead discography. Back then, I wasn't doing Rank-A-Ramas. Back then, I had short hair. It was very strange because normally I don't have short hair. I just happened to have short hair during that period. So that was my first video. So I had short hair, my graphics looked like shit, and I didn't know what I was really doing, but I did it anyway because I love Motörhead so much, and I wanted the world to know that there was a lot more to Motörhead than just Ace of Spades. Nothing against Ace of Spades, but they got lots of awesome songs that should be just as well known as Ace of Spades. And so I said, I'm going to make this video because I have every Motörhead album, and I'm just going to do it just to spread the word. Since then, a lot of people have watched that video. That's one of my most popular videos on this channel. Although that Melvin's video, that's doing pretty good. That's catching up, and I only did that last year. But that Motörhead video, that's still the video I have with the most views. And I thought, you know what? To honor the people out there, you guys that brought me up to 500, as a gift to the 500 subscribers, I'm going to go back and now do the modern, updated Rank-A-Rama treatment to Motörhead. That's right. I feel like that old video is a little outdated. I feel like I make better videos now. Plus, I didn't rank them. That was me chronologically breaking down all the albums. And I went into detail. It was a long video. As you know, I make long videos. But this one, I'm going to try to keep fast and snappy. So I decided not only am I going to do a Rank-A-Rama, I'm going to make it fast. That's right, fast like Motörhead. I'm going to just plow through this because they got a lot. They got 22 official albums. I'm not counting on Parole. It's not a real album. That was an album that they thought might be an album, but then didn't get released. And then they did it again, and they did it better with the debut Motörhead album, Motörhead. And that's what Lemmy considered his first proper album. And that is what officially is considered Motörhead's first album. So I'm going with that. So we're going to say 22 albums. And I'm not counting live albums, no compilations, no EPs, just the 22 officially released Motörhead studio albums. Let's make this kind of easy for me. And I'm going to rank them. I'm going to rank them real fast. Yeah, I'm going to say a few things about each album, but I'm not going to go deep into an analysis with them, all right? If you want that, click the link down below. As my rock and roll brother Mick Watkins likes to say, click the link down below. That's my first video I ever did. That's the one that started off this channel. That's where, if you want to hear me pontificate about each Motörhead album, click on that link. This is just about the ranking. So let's get to it, man. Let's not slow this shit down. Let's keep this orgasmatron rolling. Yeah. Boom! I don't like to say any Motörhead album's bad, but there is one that's almost borderline bad. Yeah, unfortunately, at 22 is Hammered. Yeah, not crazy about this album. Believe me, I've tried. I listened to it a couple times. There's like 2 songs on it that I like, but for the most part, just doesn't do anything for me. Of course, I'm going to own it. I own every Motörhead album. And yes, there are worst albums that have been made. But by Motörhead standards, this is not that great. It does serve a purpose because I need one album to definitely be my least favorite Motörhead album. And that's hard of Motörhead because they're so awesome. And most of their albums are either good or great or even fucking masterpieces. So when it comes to subpar albums or just average albums, there ain't much to choose from. So thank you, Hammer. Thank you for being my least favorite album. Now, 21, I was bouncing back and forth on this, but I decided it was Snakebite Love. Snakebite Love. Not bad. Better than Hammered, but not that great either. There's only about 1 or 2 songs I like on this one, too. Something about it's just kind of off. It's all right. Just not that great. That's all I can say. Hey, they had a lot of albums. They're not going to always hit it out of the park each time. Number 20, March or Die. March or Die. A lot of people say this is their least favorite albums. I know my brother Mick Watkins likes it a lot, and I get it. It's a fun album. The songs are catchy. I don't dislike this album, and it's grown a bit on me. In fact, I used to say this was my least favorite, but nah, this is definitely better than Hammered and Snakebite Love, but it's not that great overall. I do like that ballad that he does with Ozzy, but you know what? A ballad should not be the best song on a Motörhead album, and I think it is. Hellraiser's alright too, but overall, not that great, but hey, I wouldn't kick it out of bed. Better than what most hair metal bands would do. Number 19, Motorizer, just average, not bad, better than the other 3 in my opinion, but it's kind of safe, doesn't really do anything too new, and it rocks and all, but you know, they got 18 other albums that are better, what can I say? Number 18, an album that I used to like a little more, and it was surrounded with sentimentality because it's the last one. That's right, at number 18 is Bad Magic, the last Motörhead album. Sadly and tragically, Lemmy passed on after it, and it's a good album. It's a good, solid album he ended on. There's some great tracks on it. Till the End is great. I really like this album. It's a good album already. We're already getting to good albums, and we're at 18. God damn, Motörhead is a great band. Number 17, We Are Motörhead. First album of the 2000s, and Motörhead showed that they were not going to be slowing down just because Lemmy was getting up there. I like it a lot. I'm not so crazy about the cover of the Sex Pistols song. I don't know, I just don't like Sex Pistols songs when they're not done by the Sex Pistols. What can I say? But everything else is pretty good. Has my favorite Motörhead ballad on it. One More Fucking Time. Best Motörhead ballad. Love it. And it's a good album. I just think there's 16 albums better. So moving on. Number 16, Overnight Sensation. Pretty good. It's a pretty good album. It's catchy. I like every song on it. Really doesn't hit any wrong notes. Most bands wish they had an album this good. I would just say it's kind of catchy and fun and somewhat eclectic for a Motörhead album, but not one of their best. Not as strong as the 2 albums that came out right before it. But still, a pretty good album, even though it's the only one that doesn't have Snaggletooth anywhere on the album cover. At least I can't see him. If you can see Snaggletooth on this album cover, point him out. Snaggletooth needs to be on that album cover. But still, good album nonetheless. Number 15. This is an album I've just been talking about with some members of the RMCP Army. This is an album that's really grown on me a lot in the past year, and that is The World Is Yours. The World Is Yours. This album's really, really good. Alright, I wouldn't say great by Motörhead standards. By most band standards, this is great. Motörhead standards, this is just really good. But you know what? Nothing wrong with a really good Motörhead album. This is one of their stronger later albums in my opinion. And man, does it really kick ass. It's just a straight up rock and roll record. Somewhere between Iron Fist and rock and roll in my opinion. You know, it's kind of fun in spots like rock and roll, but also really heavy and kind of minimalistic and relentless like Iron Fist. It's a little bit of both. This whole album's really good. Definitely one of their best later albums. Number 14, Kiss of Death. Really good follow-up to Inferno. In fact, I'd say it's more or less like Inferno Part 2. Nothing wrong with that, because Inferno's great. This is a really good album. A lot of catchy, memorable songs. Very heavy, but it does have a few fun rock and roll curveballs. I really like this album. And moving on, the number 13. Now we're getting into great albums. All right, we're getting to great albums. We're past the really good albums and getting to great albums. And this album is indeed great. It's Inferno. Inferno at number 13. This was a real shot in the arm after a couple albums that were good or not good, like in Hammered's case. Much better than Hammered, so it was a big improvement over Hammered. And man, this album is really heavy, but has some eclecticism. There's a little bit of rock and roll and bluesy stuff on it. But man, when it gets heavy, like in The Name of Tragedy, woo! Terminal Show, man, I love this album. It's a great album. It's a 21st century classic as far as I'm concerned. And in my opinion, they have two 21st century classics. Like the next one at number 12 is Aftershock. Now that was a real upset for me. I didn't know I loved Aftershock so much. I remember when it came out, I thought this is good. This is one of their better later albums. But this is an album that I needed to spend a little bit of time away from. And this is an album I've been getting really into recently. Man, the production's great. Easily their best production, I think, since Sacrifice, actually. You could say that the songs on Inferno are a little stronger overall. And Lemmy's singing is finally showing some signs of age with his voice here. Hey, it's just his second to last album before he died, so nothing wrong with that. More power to him, man. That guy always sounded cool, even up until the end. But you know what? Musically, whoa, listen to that bass. Nice and fuzzy. Production's amazing, really punchy. I think it's Phil Campbell's best guitar playing he ever did with the band. Yeah, he's really fucking going to town on this album. And this is another album that kind of has a little bit of a kind of rock and roll meets Iron Fist vibe. It's really rocking. A little more eclectic than some of their other later albums, in my opinion. There's a bluesy song, Dusting Glass. Great song. Love Dustin Glass. Actually, it brings in a little bit of an Overkill quality too, because it's as eclectic as Overkill is. Really heavy in spots. It's really like catchy, melodic, classic rock in spots. It's like everything. I love this album, and who knows, it might even grow more in future years. Definitely one of their best later albums. I think it's great, and I think it's another 21st century classic. So there you go. Good job, Aftershock. Number 11. The album that got me into Motörhead. That's right, this was the very first Motörhead album I ever bought, and that is 1916. 1916 essentially does what I think March or Die failed to do, even though it did it first, which is it's the crossover Motörhead album. It's actually poppy. Yes, it's poppy. Still heavy, but you could tell that Lemmy was trying to stretch out. He tried this before on another album too, but here it's very eclectic. In fact, I'd say this is the most eclectic Motörhead album. It has kind of everything. It has ballads, it has rockers, it's fun. There's even a song with goddamn horns on it, and yet it works. It all works. It's a great album. In fact, most bands never have an album this great. It's amazing that Motörhead has 10 albums I like better. Wow. Awesome. But 1916, a great album to play for normcore people that never heard Motörhead before, because they might actually like this one. Number 10, Bastards. Don't play the Bastards. They won't like Bastards. It's just for us bastards that love Motörhead. That's right. It's the album where he decided, fuck it, I ain't going pop. I'm going to just lean into this Motörhead shit and do that for the rest of my career. And man, is it a triumphant return to form. I love it. Still a little touch of eclecticism from the early 90s hanging in there. But overall, it's pretty just heavy and rocking. Fast songs, really catchy. God damn, it's Lemmy, a talented motherfucker. I love this album. In fact, I'd probably rank it a little bit higher, but I'm not crazy about that child molestation ballad. Not crazy about that one. That's it. The rest of the album kicks ass though. Especially love that song, Liar. Woo! Man, does that rock. Great groove. Love this album. Awesome. 90s classic. Now we get to number 9. Hey, this is controversial to some people because I said that this was my least favorite of the classic lineup albums. This album has grown on me a little bit more since back when I made that first review. But you know what? Still my least favorite from the classic lineup, and that is Bomber. Yeah, great album. I love it. But hey, one of the albums from the classic lineup had to be my least favorite, and it's this one. To me, it just doesn't rock quite as much as the others. But it's still a really great album. Kind of leans a little into, I would say, their bluesier side a little bit. Although most normal people would listen to this and not hear the blues. But I hear the blues. But it's great. It's catchy. But to me, it kind of sits between two albums that are stronger. But still, really, really great album. I love Bomber. So no disrespect to Bomber. But my least favorite from the classic lineup. It's still awesome, and it still broke my top 10. Alright, number 8. The last album with the classic lineup. Obviously, I'm talking about Lemmy, who's in every lineup, because Motörhead is Lemmy. But the classic lineup is with Phil the Filthy Animal Taylor and Fast Eddie Clarke. And of course, like most people, that is my favorite lineup, although there's been a lot of great Motörhead lineups. But yeah, that's my favorite. And Iron Fist is great. Now, Iron Fist is essentially Ace of Spades Part 2 and not as good. But yet, it's awesome. I'll take that. In fact, it's kind of rawer and nastier than Ace of Spades, which I do like. Now, I can kind of hear that the songs are a little half-assed in spots. It does sound a little rushed. But you know what? This is a band at their peak doing something that's a little rushed. It's kind of like AC/DC's Flick of the Switch. It's that kind of album where it just sounds like the band went in there real down and dirty and just knocked out a bunch of songs that sound like each other. And you know what? Nothing wrong with that because what they sound like is awesome. I love Iron Fist, a nice, gritty, dirty, early 80s heavy metal record. And that's the best music in the world, so why wouldn't you like it? Moving on to number 7. Sacrifice. Hey, this was Lemmy's favorite Motörhead album, and you know what? Lemmy had good taste. It's a masterpiece. Now we are getting into albums that aren't just great, they're masterpieces. That's right, goddamn masterpieces. Move over, Picasso. Fucking Sacrifice in your face. Sacrifice is a 90s metal masterpiece, one of my favorite albums from the 90s, and my favorite Motörhead album post the 80s. So there you go. It's a goddamn masterpiece, so down and dirty and raw. Love the sound of this album. Pretty much builds on what Bastards did, but strips down some of the bullshit. But even though the bullshit on Bastards is pretty good. But let's just say there ain't no child molestation ballads on this album. It's all just awesome Motörhead music, and it's so grungy sounding and down and dirty, and brings in a little more of that punk underground hardcore side back into Motörhead again. And even more so, I'd say this is their heaviest and darkest album. Just like that awesome album cover suggests. It's just evil sounding. And I love things that are evil sounding, especially when they're catchy and rock and roll. Goddamn, Sex and Death, Over Your Shoulder, baby. The title track, my favorite Motörhead video too is Sacrifice. What an awesome video. What an awesome album. It's a goddamn masterpiece. If you don't love this album, you ain't metal, motherfucker. Moving on. Number 6. What do you know? Another masterpiece. That's right. They're all masterpieces at this point. Ace of Spades. That's right. Ace of Spades. Some people might think, hey, shouldn't this be in my top 5? Sorry. I like the other 5 albums better. That beat it. But hey, there's no doubt that this is a classic. It's, of course, got their most famous song, and that's a masterpiece. But you know what? It's not all about Ace of Spades. Just like Motörhead's not all about Ace of Spades, the album Ace of Spades isn't all about Ace of Spades. Love You Like a Reptile, Jailbait, We Are the Road Crew, and of course my favorite song on the album, The Chase is Better Than the Catch. Woo! Is that some awesome, righteous, early 80s heavy metal? To me, this is the sound of the new wave of British heavy metal reaching its peak. And it's one of the many great albums from 1980, which in my opinion is the peak of rock and roll and the greatest year ever in music. And I still listen to it a lot, and I still love it. I just kind of like the songs a little bit better on the other 5 albums I put above it. But no shame in Ace of Spades. It's a goddamn heavy metal rock and roll masterpiece. And if you don't like it, you're wrong. Number 5, the top 5. Here we go with the debut. The proper official classic lineup debut. I am talking about Motörhead. To me, one of the most underrated Motörhead albums. I don't know why more people don't talk about this. Yeah, Overkill was a big leap forward, but goddamn it, out of the gate, they were fucking kicking ass. You hear Lemmy's fuzzy bass line right in the beginning with that great title track, and you know, half of this is reworked versions of Hawkwind songs. And hey, Hawkwind's an awesome band, and Lemmy wrote some awesome songs in Hawkwind. Lost Johnny, great song. Love that song. Love the lyrics. This whole album. And my very favorite Motörhead song is on this album. Keep Us on the Road. God damn it. That's like the fucking dark and dirty fucking jumpin' jack flash of fucking Motörhead. One of the things I love so much about this album is its raw production. Might be too punk for some metalheads, but hey, I like a little punk music and underground stuff, so I don't mind it. I like hearing some rawness. I love the sound of the bass and the attitude and the groove of this album. It's a band that's coming in with a real distinct sound, and you just know Lemmy's a musical genius. Kind of like Jimi Hendrix. He's a guy where he comes in, Lemmy sounds like Motörhead, just him and the bass. No disrespect to Fast Eddie and Filthy Animal. They definitely added and embellished the sound, but at the heart of it, it's Lemmy and that goddamn bass, and it's all over this album. It's like the fucking genesis of Motörhead, so how could you not love this album? I love Motörhead, one of my favorite Motörhead albums, and now we're moving on to number 4. This was a big upset for me, because for a long time, even back in that video I did back in 2016, I said that this was my second favorite Motörhead album. For many, many years, it's been my second favorite Motörhead album, but in the past year or so, it dropped a couple notches as 2 other albums, one especially, really rose up in the ranks. And it knocked down Another Perfect Day. Yes, Another Perfect Day is now number 4. But you know what? It's still a masterpiece, and I love it. And you know what? It's one of their best albums. It's definitely one of their best productions. And a year or 2 from now, I might regret making this number 4. But that's the thing about a Rank-A-Rama. That's what's fun about it. It's all about the time you did it. Right now, March 12th, that's when I'm recording this video. I don't know when it's coming up. But right now, March 12th, Saturday afternoon, in Los Angeles, in West Hollywood, right now, Another Perfect Day is my 4th favorite Motörhead album, but no shame in being 4. Still broke the top 5. It's still one of my favorite Motörhead albums. It's different. It was him going, at least by Motörhead standards, a little poppier. He had a new guitarist, Bravo from Thin Lizzy, and he brought a kind of more melodic guitar playing and a catchy Rocket. That's a song I played at the beginning. Great song, one of my favorite Motörhead songs. And man, it's a beautiful thing. I was sorry that Robbo and Lemmy didn't work it out because it was a really interesting combination, hearing those more melodic guitar lines over what Lemmy and Filthy were doing. It was really great. And it just shows you how tuneful fucking Lemmy is. And what a great lyricist. What a crackerjack lyricist. Like writing songs like One Track Mind, Shine's a classic. This whole album's a fucking classic. Anyone that likes Ace of Spades but doesn't like this album, they gotta be lying to themselves. Anyway, number 3. This is the Motörhead album that has grown the most in my estimation over the past couple of years. And I was shocked that I ranked it so high, but I kept listening to it again and again this week, and I said, you know, I gotta admit that rock and roll is number 3. Yeah, rock and roll. Woo! And not just because it's called rock and roll, although that's part of the reason why. But really, it's called rock and roll because it is rock and roll. Because this album, when you really get down to it, is one of the truest, purest expressions of rock and roll awesomeness that Lemmy has ever put down on a goddamn record. It featured the triumphant return of Filthy Animal Taylor, but now he's part of this goddamn 4-piece. For a brief period there, Motörhead was a 4-piece, and they were fucking savage, taking out all the fucking losers around him with their awesome brand of heavy metal and rock and roll music. Awesome album cover. Love it. Lewd. Suggestive. That thing about rock and roll, it's supposed to be dirty. It's supposed to be about sex. And Lemmy makes it all about that. This album's eclectic. It's fun. It's like the ultimate Motörhead party album in a lot of ways, but not at the expense of the heavy metal edge to it, and got so many great songs. Blackheart, that's one of my favorite Motörhead songs and my favorite song on this album. But this whole goddamn album's great. Great riffs, great melodies, great hooks. It's just goddamn, listen to hooks. Just listen to Boogeyman at the end. The way it just keeps getting hookier and hookier and hookier, and before you know it, it's gone and you want to listen to rock and roll again. Put it on repeat. Listen to Filthy Animal Taylor's great drumming at the beginning, and goddamn, that song's so great. You know, it's about how Lemmy says no to the woman who broke his heart, and he's saying yes to rock and roll, which is his real true love. I love this goddamn album. It's an album that just gets better and better and better over the years, and it's one of his greatest statements ever. It's no wonder why it's called rock and roll, because that's what Lemmy loved more than anything else, and it's one of their strongest albums. Great production, great songs, great hooks. I'm surprised I didn't consider this one of my favorite albums back in the day, but now I totally appreciate rock and roll. It's a goddamn rock and roll masterpiece. Number 2. It's an album I always loved. It was always in my top 5, but now I love it even more. And it's number 2, and it's this one. Yeah, Orgasmatron. How could you not love an album called Orgasmatron? You have to pronounce it like that. Orgasmatron. So awesome. Man, this album, some people complain about the production. I don't know what it sounded like in the 80s, but that remastered vinyl and CD I have sounds awesome. It's like a sludgy wall of sound. It's the first time that Motörhead was a 4-piece, and you had Phil Campbell and Wurzel, or however you say his name, Michael Wurzel, burst in, and I can't forget the name of the drummer, because he only played on one album, but I got some shit from some people back in the day, because when I first did that video, I forgot his name for a minute, and because I wasn't a big Saxon guy at the time, but since then I've listened to a lot of Saxon. Some mad respect to Pete Gill. I love Pete Gill, and yeah, I prefer, if I had to pick my favorite Motörhead drummer, it'd still be Filthy Animal Taylor, but Pete Gill is my second favorite, and his drumming on this album is awesome. That sound, big brash guitar drum sound, and man, it's just savage, man. Step Forever, Nothing Up My Sleeve, Claw, I know what my claw is for. Oh man, and then the way Claw goes right into Mean Machine, and it just sounds like the whole fucking world is crashing down on you. It's apocalyptic rock and roll, fucking hellfire wall sound. Built for speed, such a goddamn awesome groove, riding with the driver. And this is the thing, how can Lemmy be so heavy and so rock and roll at the same time? Usually bands get this heavy and they lose the groove. Lemmy never does. Dr. Rock, probably the weakest song on the album, and it's still great. And Orgasmatron, the goddamn epic title track, which is like spoken word from fucking hell. I love this whole album. It's a masterpiece. One of the greatest 80s heavy metal albums. The greatest 80s heavy metal album cover, I think, actually, and the greatest Motörhead album cover. And goddamn it, it's the kind of album that draws a line in the sand. Are you a man or are you something less than a man? Orgasmatron and how you feel about it will make that decision for you, my friend. And now we're getting to number 1. And if you know your Motörhead albums, you already figured this one out, unless you're a fucking dumbass. Okay, number 1, Overkill. Overkill always has been my favorite Motörhead album. It always has been, and it always will be. This is one of those albums, kind of like AC/DC's Powerage or Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti. It's locked in for number 1. That's never gonna change. It's the ultimate Motörhead album. This has it all. It's both heavy, eclectic, different shades. You get the really full-on attack of the title track. The title track really nailed their sound, and goddamn it, Filthy's drumming. So many thrash bands took a cue from this. God damn it, my favorite thrash band, Overkill, even named themselves after this song. And why shouldn't they? Because it's one of the greatest heavy metal songs of all time, and one of the most important songs of all time. It helped redefine the genre for the 80s, that's right. Even though this was a 1979 album, it's really like the first album of the 80s. 79 is really where some bands like Judas Priest and Motörhead were really creating the sound of early 80s heavy metal. And this is one of those albums that did it. It's the album that takes the 70s and turns it into the goddamn 80s. And then you got Stay Clean. My favorite song on the album is actually I Won't Pay Your Price. I Won't Pay Your Price. Goddamn, it's just this groovy little rock and roll tune. I fucking love that song. I'll Be Your Sister. Capricorn. Weird, trippy. Kinda showed Lemmy's Hawkwind side. No Class. Ooh, so catchy. Damage Case. Love it. Tear You Down. Metropolis. Bluesy, great. You hear a little ZZ Top influence on a lot of these songs too, but much heavier and rawer. And of course, Limb from Limb, a savage way to conclude this masterpiece. Overkill is a masterpiece. It's my favorite Motörhead album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It would definitely make my top 5 favorite albums of all time. It's one of the greatest pieces of art to come out of Western civilization in the 20th century. And if you don't love Overkill, you are definitely wrong. So there you go. Overkill, number 1, and we did it. We did the Motörhead Rank-A-Rama, and we did it pretty fast. That's probably the fastest I've ever done a Rank-A-Rama, so that was a lot of fun. Rock and roll. Hope it didn't hurt anyone. So now, we're wrapping up. We got over 500 subscribers. It's awesome. Thank you so much. And I promise to always be making some awesome videos for you guys where we're talking about some awesome music, usually rock and roll music, but you know, I throw a curveball from time to time. Definitely check out me and Eric Jordan, RMCP, the Rock All Over You podcast. I'll leave a link down below. And always subscribe. If you're watching this and you didn't subscribe for some reason, man, get on it. It takes a second. Just click, subscribe, and I will give you some more awesome rock and roll content. And definitely, if you haven't listened to all these albums, what are you doing? You're slacking off. These are awesome milestones in rock and roll music. And if you don't love them, you don't love heavy metal, and you don't love rock and roll. And if you don't love heavy metal and rock and roll, you're watching this video by mistake. All right, it was fun. I'm out. Keep rocking.